So we back at it again. We've been on a hiatus. We've been whew,
We're
ducking, dodging,
back.
working, going on vacation. But you already know we back. We live and we full effect. So I already got to introduce my co-host this week. I'm gonna start with my boy Jerry. I got the Q in the house. They're about to have a little shindig in Charlotte. I'm pretty know he gonna probably be down there live full effect, hopping and
You
people,
know he is. Hopping
ripping
and
out their
barking. Hopping and
clothes
barking.
and barking. Look, he already ready. He already started.
There you
It's
go.
gonna be a whole shindig in Charlotte.
We're gonna be out there, man. We definitely gonna be out there in Charlotte tomorrow. Yes, sir.
Definitely,
Love that.
definitely. And I had to have my lovely co-host. She from the boom. And if you mess with her, she gonna get the gap. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about Robert McGee. What's up with you?
Hey guys, I missed everybody. This has been a
I
long
miss you.
time.
It's
Taking
been
our
about
break.
what
Mm-hmm.
two, 3 weeks.
Two
Shoot,
weeks?
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Feel like it's
Come
longer than
on.
that.
Exactly,
Well, I know.
exactly. It's true. But yeah, we back, we live, we full effect. And I had to bring somebody on the show. I had to. This boy's amazing. He ripping over here, running over here. He everywhere. He had the SWAT media day, and he doing other things over here. You about to go to another media day, man. Some of y'all know him off of Scotty platform. Some of y'all know him off of his platform, the Blue Bloods. We call him Big Blue. Everybody else call him Blue. Man, y'all welcome Blue as our special guest for this week, man. Shout out to Blue, man. Give a round of applause for Blue right there, man.
What's up, guys? I appreciate y'all.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. And you already know how we go. We're gonna start off with our lovely co-host. Let's go.
Listen, okay, so shout out to my women in sports. But the Las Vegas Raiders has hired Miss Sandra Douglas Morgan as their new president of
Mm-hmm.
the Las Vegas Raiders. Now she's making history as the first Black woman to assume the role. But just a little bit about, Sandra, undergrad at the University of Nevada, and then she earned her Juris Doctorate as well at the same university. And she's just been kind of all over in the law realm. She was a litigation attorney. She did some work with AT&T, and then she became the chairwoman of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. So she has had her hands a lot when it comes to like business, when it comes to legalities. But this is kind of like her first role in being in athletics, so to speak. So, there's a lot of push and pull about what can she do for the Raiders. They've had a lot of just success overall. They just had a new building for their facility in Las Vegas. They shifted. They were the Oakland Raiders. Now they're the Las Vegas Raiders. So there's a lot of innovation going on for this team. So it's going to be great to kind of see what she has a hand. But you guys, let me know. Do you guys think this is a great push for the Las Vegas Raiders? What can she do? What do you expect for her to do with this team kind of moving forward?
Yeah. So I mean, I really love this hire. Just looking at her resume, she has a very diverse resume. And when it comes to athletics, with sports management, the main thing of sports management is that management. So with her resume and her background, I think it's a very good hire. Not only just for, it's not a big step just for women. This is a big step also for the Oakland Raiders. That's been an organization that's been, kind of down for a while now. They haven't really been making a lot of noise as far as, being a great organization in the playoffs or anything like that. So this hire may help them reach that goal, may help them with their attendance. They got a new arena, a new stadium, so everything should be on the up and up with this hire.
Go ahead, Blue.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I think the Raiders, though, the one thing I want to see is I hope they give her the freedom and the control and enable her to make the decisions that she wants to make. I think when you saw with the Raiders, with the Gruden situation, with some of the recent, decisions behind the scenes, I felt like it wasn't always a organized or united front. And I'm hoping that with her coming in, they organize behind her and give her the support she needs to be successful. Because I think we see too many times. Organizations go for, try to answer, the diversity hire, but then almost sabotage it behind the scenes by not letting those people do what they hired them to do. So I'm really hoping that the Raiders organize behind her. It's a united front, because I think you just listed off all the qualifications. She has the ability to do special teams with the Raiders. So for me, I'm just hoping that the Raiders support her the way she deserves to be supported. But I think if they do that, this could be a very successful hire for the Raiders.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It is a lot of organizations that do that diversity hire. Let's get a black guy in here. Let's get a Hispanic in here. Let's get somebody that makes us look like we're doing that one off of helping out that minority. But in all actuality, a lot of times they aren't even heard. So I think that's a very good point you made there.
Mm. And it's
Definitely. Coming from the sports world. Oh, go ahead, Robin.
no. I was just saying, like, going off of what Blue was saying, of like the Raiders definitely need to support her. Giving her things to do, and her not just being her role, but allowing her to have autonomy. She's the president, so if you're going to be the president, she has to have autonomy, and she has to be able to, list out some things. Sustain. People will come in and they're new and they're not like, okay, but is it really? It's like, I think it'll be great to have her have that be in supported, like Blue was saying, and being able to have like her voice heard throughout her role, and however way it seems fit for her to be able to do that. So, point.
Definitely. Coming from the sports world, from what I know, they're always looking for, like Jerry said, a minority to hire. So this is like a big stepping stone for women in sports, because now in this day and age, they're taking accountability as far as like we're hiring women, we're hiring more ethnicities, like different cultures, Black, Hispanic, Chinese, Asian. They're coming overseas and getting hired for these jobs. So this is amazing, just for seeing a Black woman in the NFL, which is a predominantly men sports, and she's at one of the prestigious teams in the NFL, the Oakland Raiders. They just, I guess, Las Vegas Raiders, if you want to say it. But that's just amazing for somebody to just to be there, and like you said, like you guys said, I hope they really let her do her job, and take the bulls by the horns, and just let her have at it.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you good
Yes.
now. You
Yeah.
good.
Okay, fantastic, wonderful. Now, shifting gears, staying within the football realm, but still more exciting news, especially for our HBCUs, right? So, as we know, the XFL was a new league that was created back in 2020, like right before the pandemic hit, and then the pandemic hit, and then all hell broke loose. Do y'all remember who actually had owned the XFL prior to Dwayne Johnson? Don't even know who do I.
It was Vince
was-
McMahon.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
Vince
yeah.
Okay,
McMahon.
Vince McMahon.
Yep.
It was somebody important, but it was just like it
The-
didn't go
the-
anywhere.
The
So
man
pandemic
who's
hit.
scamming.
Yeah, it was a lot. But now Dwayne The Rock Johnson owns the XFL. And a few days ago, they hosted, and when I say they, Jackson State, of course, is in the news once again. As we know, Coach Prime just making it happen. But they were all able to hold a HBCU showcase for those who were recruiting. They're trying to get into the XFL. So there were XFL coaches there. Dwayne The Rock Johnson was actually there in present, which is, I think, is really huge to have the owner, and as impactful and as renowned as The Rock is, to actually have him in that space for that event, I think is really amazing. But yeah, it was held at Jackson State. There was an awesome group of guys that were able to showcase their talents there. So what do you guys think I bring this conversation back up of like JSU is always in the news, but they're in the news for the right reasons. Let's give them their props, let's give them their flowers, let's give them their credit. But is it that, it's because of, Deion Sanders and like what his pool is and his connections, or are we actually trying to take HBCUs seriously and JSU is just that platform to allow that to happen? Because that's like, a kind of double-edged sword of like getting like all the attention, all the feedback, all of that. But it's like, it's not just about JSU, right? We're trying to make up for all the lack of the exposure that HBCUs didn't have prior. So what do you guys think? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, first off, starting off with The Rock, that's my guy. Even though he plays the same role in every movie, that's still my guy.
He's gonna save someone's life.
Right, he's the same role about 5 different movies. But besides that, what he's doing right now, linking up with Deion, is incredible. Deion, I really think like Deion is really the reason why Jackson State became into the light, because before he got there, they weren't. I feel like nobody was really talking about Jackson State as much as they are now. But since he's gotten there, I think that light has kind of translated more onto the athletes, because he does have more athletes now than what he had when he started. So that's from that standpoint, I think it is a lot of light shed on Jackson State. But as far as this particular situation, I'm really happy that The Rock did this. A lot of people don't know that he actually played at Miami. He played defensive line in Miami, and he wanted to go and play pro ball, but they only let 53 guys on the roster. He always says he felt like he was the 54th guy, and that was a big reason why he got the XFL. And I think it's going to be a great gateway, a great connection for not only Jackson State, but also for a lot of HBCU athletes to kind of get that first step into the professional level and then graduate higher into the NFL. So I think this is a great way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great opportunity. I think any opportunity that allows athletes to further their career beyond college is a good opportunity, whether it's the XFL, USFL, Arena League, Canadian League. I mean, there's a lot to follow now, but there's a lot of guys who are really good that just don't have the opportunity. And, a lot of people who are outside of the football world and really don't look behind the scenes and haven't looked at the stats, I don't think they realize how good you have to be to really make the NFL, because it is so like and this goes back to, even the debate of could a college team ever beat an NFL team? People don't understand that those NFL teams are made up of 53 guys that are probably the best player to ever play from their city.
Mm-hmm.
Really, truly, and they're in the College Hall of Fame, like high school. They probably got high school stadiums named after them somewhere. I mean, to be in the NFL and play on that 53-man roster, not practice squad guys or anything like that, you have to be the best of the best. And so I think there's a lot of great athletes that can go get opportunity. You look at a guy like Aqeel Glass from Alabama A&M, who had an amazing career. I think he should be playing somewhere. And I talked with the SID of at Alabama A&M today at SWAT Media Day, off the record about it. The top 3 quarterbacks in the FCS last year that are probably going to be 3 of the best all time, Eric Barriere, Cole Kelly, and Aqeel Glass, that none of those guys are on NFL rosters. So you're telling me that those guys who probably threw for a combined like 60,000 yards in their career aren't good enough to continue playing football somewhere? I just don't think that. For the whole Jackson State thing, I think Jackson State did have a brand before, Coach Prime came in, but I think it was almost just lighting the fuse as bringing a guy like Coach Prime in there, and it just exploded. I don't think, if he's coaching at Valley, it's popular. I just don't think it's the same as if he's coaching at there's some of those brands, the Gramblings, the FAMUs, the Jackson States, the Southerns. If he goes to any of those schools, it explodes like this. So I think it's a unique situation in a point, but I think it's good, man. I mean, it doesn't really matter who's getting the attention, because if Jackson State's getting the attention, when they play Valley, they get the attention. When they play Texas Southern, they get the attention. And I think you're looking across the board, there's a lot of schools in the SWAC that are getting a lot of attention just based off of people being interested in Jackson State, because they come in looking at Jackson State, but then they shift their focus. They fall in love with watching an Alabama A&M player, watching a FAMU player, watching a Grambling player, and it kind of branches out from there. And that's how you build fans. That's how the Power Fives build fans. I mean, you don't have to be an alum or you get drawn in by an athlete. Someone tunes in to watch Bryce Young. They fall in love with some Texas A&M player, and now they might go watch a Texas A&M game, and that's the goal. And it's a simple business model. And I think it's something that the SWAC and other SWAC schools can capitalize on. So I think overall this was a great opportunity. Shout out to the XFL and the Rocket. I'm hoping it lasts. The one worry with these expansion leagues are they going to last? Are they going to offer long-term stability for some of these guys, especially after, I believe it was the AAF or AA, what was it a few years back?
I think.
Yeah, they played like 5.5 games and then it was like bankrupt and everyone just was kind of left in the dust. So I'm hoping they have a strategic plan to make this work. But overall, right now, it looks like a great opportunity and I'm excited.
Yeah. I think the XFL, they just have to learn how to align their scheduling. Because if the scheduling is clashing with the NFL, it's not going to work. If it's clashing with a lot of other, like right now would be a perfect time, in my opinion. Like after the NBA is gone, after NFL is gone, MLB is coming, is close. Like so, it's right. Well, it's still going on, but it's not as being watched as other sports. But I feel like right now would probably be a great time, to have the XFL on summertime football. From the
I
end
think
of
to go off of that, Jerry, the only pushback I feel like that could be a problem is now we have the USFL, because the USFL is now back and they're in their games currently during this time as well. So it's like, yes, it would be a great time to have the XFL as far as scheduling and getting the most exposure and things like that. However, it could be, I'm not saying that it would, but it could be a potential conflict when you're having the USFL, which is very similarly based foundationally and platform wise as the XFL. I don't know as far as like ranking in the sense of like, okay, you have the USFL, XFL, NFL kind of thing. I think at the end of the day, they're all playing great football. So, but that's just me because I love football. But I mean, in a sense, I get your point, but it's hard to really wrap your mind around what would be the best time frame, because they're going to lap regardless. Like football and basketball, they're going to overlap because basketball will start right at that October, November, and then we'll, go all the way through. So I think if they could find a good loophole of overlapping, but be the best as far as making sure everybody gets their fair share, I think it could definitely work in the long run. Going back to what you were saying, Blue, of like longevity and making sure that things are, continuing to run and sustainable and being retained as well. Because that's, I think, is the huge part of it. Yeah.
Well, I think the XFL, if I'm not mistaken, if I read their statement right when they first reestablished it, their goal is to be almost like the AAA of the NFL. How it was worded to me for someone I talked to, is that the USFL is spring football. They're going to be their own separate thing, own rosters, own drafts. But what the XFL is hoping to do with the Rock is they understand that you can't go heads up with the NFL. Like it's not going to happen. You're going to get run straight over. But if you partner with them and like hop on that train and they bring you in, they supply you with players that might not be good enough for the NFL, but they can send them down as a feeder league. Or you have a guy who wins MVP in your league, he gets an opportunity at the NFL. I think their close relationship with the NFL could save them, because if they get into any trouble, the NFL might be more willing to help them out in sticky situations and offer them some financial advice, things like, behind the scenes advice that really could help that longevity. So if I had to pick the USFL, XFL, you might want to even put the XFL just a little bit above, even though they haven't had a season, just due to their close proximity to the NFL right now.
That is true. Yeah.
Definitely. Piggyback off of what you guys saying, I think personally the best time to start it is literally like right after the Super Bowl. Like start it literally in that February or March area, so you won't run into, like you said, Jerry, baseball. Baseball literally starts in the end of March, so you have from February to the end of March to have your weeks and have your championship. Then basketball is almost time for playoffs, but it's really not. So like you kind of in that middle threshold of not really missing out on fans because after football season for NFL, people want more.
Mhm.
People like, dang, football season over with. What we gotta watch now? You
Mhm.
hit that tail end of February, you can watch it. Then just coming off of The Rock, what he has going on. I know he signed with ESPN and Disney,
Mhm.
Disney with ESPN. So that's a major TV deal that the SWAC and all these other schools talk about. So you already have a TV deal set up in place where you're going to be shown on national TV. Not no, I'm trying to think of a network that Bally Sports. Not too many
Don't
people
do
know
Valley
about Bally.
Sports.
Yeah, not too many people know about Bally Sports, but everybody know about ESPN. So, you coming off of signing a deal like that,
Yeah.
then you're doing it the right way. You're going to places that people don't think about going to have tryouts. You're going all the way to Hawaii. Nobody
Right.
has tryouts in Hawaii. You're going to Jackson, Mississippi, at an HBCU to have tryouts, putting HBCUs on blast like we already been doing. So The Rock, he's one of the best. He's like up there with LeBron when it comes to being a businessman.
Mhm.
Like his liquor sales, his name sales, his
Mhm.
movie sales. So whatever he put his hand in is literally like successful. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this business is gonna run, and once he's done with this, he's gonna give it to somebody else, and they just gonna take off and run with the wind.
I feel like he has a very good, like, a finger on the pulse of like what's needed and what's current. Like he has a finger on just like not I would say like maybe the culture or like what's popular. Like he has like he knows what it's going to take, and also like you say, he's a good businessman. I mean, he's even down to earth too, which makes him personable, which really helps him negotiate. Like I don't know if you guys saw Jordan Afonso from Grambling, the offensive lineman. The Rock suited up
Mm-hmm.
and went one on one with him and did like
Yeah.
actual reps with him. And so, I mean, what owner or of any football league is going to suit up and go out there and go heads up with one of the best offensive linemen in the SWAC last year? So I think his ability on social media to brand, ability to have connections in corporate sponsorships, things like that, having the pulse on what's popular, what's going on, I think it only is going to bode well for the XFL.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Danny Garcia, the other owner of the XFL, has her hand in everything business wise, right?
Yeah.
When you think about her being the co-founder of the Seven Bucks Productions and all of the grossing movies that is under that production in and of itself, not even taking consideration of all the other things that she's done. And both of them already have a relationship created. So that's, I think, is also a great foundation for them to have, the XFL that's coming off of whatever they had with the other owners. And now they have a partnership already created outside of the XFL. So now they're coming in together, like-minded individuals. I feel like this is a better ownership and better leadership now that we can see it moving forward. But yeah, we definitely want to see, when we say our athletes, but like, the athletes that don't get enough exposure, the athletes that don't get, the recognition throughout their regular seasons at their institutions, whether it's HBCUs, it could be D2, whatever. We want a platform for this, group, this XFL, to be able to tap into those individuals, and then they can be able to build up, like you were saying, Blue. Like if this is supposed to be like the step down right before NFL, we want them to keep pushing so that they can be sustainable for these next group of peoples that don't have that ability. So I think it's going to be much better to have, Dwayne Rock Johnson and Danny Garcia to be these leaderships for this. Cause I didn't know too much about the other owners, but it also didn't help about COVID. That I think that also took a huge toll for them, because they started exactly what we suggested. They started their 2020 season right after Super Bowl. It was like February 8th or 7th or something like that, right after the Super Bowl. So I think they had a good traction and a good like idea and strategy. It just kind of fell through. So hopefully XFL now is better.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now what the best thing about it is, even though we had that COVID year, that whole year they had time to make the business plan even better than what they already had.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
They
I
do.
think that idea, that business model that you had said, Blue, of that kind of like a feeder league, kind of like a G League for the NBA, that is a
Mhm.
great business model to have because the NFL does not have anything like it.
Yeah, because they don't have a partnership. That's the hugest thing. NFL needs that partnership with XFL. That's huge. So
And
yeah.
they're the only thing. I think they're the only national league that doesn't have like a a G League or a downgraded, partnership where you
Hmm.
can send the players down and bring them
Hmm.
back up. They can have a two-way contract. So like,
Hmm.
that would be that would more money for the NFL. Why not? Like just
Right.
hop on the bandwagon.
Yeah, that is true. Now, kind of going back to Coach Prime, and his influence on not only just Jackson State, but just also in the SWAC and then really just FCS kind of football altogether. Um, I'm going to kick this to you guys first. What do you guys kind of think as far as, Coach Prime's idea of moving up this FCS ladder, eventually getting to the FBS level, which we all know, I feel like every FCS school's idea dream is to get to the FBS level. So that's not necessarily unheard of. But what do you guys think is kind of like, you know, a great way for him to continue kind of influencing especially when we're talking about HBCU's athletics, but just like, what is a great way to continue pushing this idea, specifically when we're talking about, HBCUs, the FCS ladder, and how to be able to get there successfully?
Well, I think, one of the greatest ways, what solves every problem in sports? Winning.
Yeah.
So as long as he keeps on winning, I feel like he'll always have that argument of, hey, we're going to move up. We're going to move up the ladder. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. As long as you're winning, nobody can argue against your program. Um, I do feel like the money issue will come to play, um, but that is something that we'll have to see in the future because I don't know what the financial means are for each level. It may be different for FCS and FBS, but I do think they're on track. I think he has a great idea of moving up. I don't know the time frame. The time frame may be a little quick of what he's saying, but I do think Jackson State has the ability to move up, and along a lot of other schools do too. That should be the goal, to move up and to keep getting better as an organization and as a university.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting debate. I think, you have two sides. I think you guys have all seen it on social media, on different platforms, things like that. My thing is, I feel like everyone's arguing the same point. They're just coming at it from a different direction. Like everyone's for eventually moving up, but you have like one side that is talking about future things about moving up, but it's making it seem like it's tomorrow. And you have the other side saying we're not ready right now, but
Mhm.
like we could do it eventually. And like they're just consistently clashing, and it's like everyone's on the same side here about everyone wanting to move up. It's just one side says it's down the road, and the other side is a little bit more like dreaming about like what could possibly happen if this and this happens. And the biggest backlash I think I've heard is when people are like, I don't know the intricacies of what it's going to take and things like that, while one side is like, I need to hear the intricacies or it doesn't seem like it's a feasible plan. Like I want tangible details about how this happens. I think the number one thing, of course, is getting the budgets up and also increasing the donor base. That's a huge thing. We had Dr. Cavill on the show, and he was talking about the donor base and increasing enrollment and things like that play a huge role in moving up, because you need more students to donate more money, and therefore you increase your budget that way. But I think Jackson State's in a very interesting spot because they have a coach like Deion Sanders that can
Mhm.
bring a lot of outside eyes, influence, and things like that. I think when you look at the schools that could potentially move up, I would say, I said on my show, I think 3 years is the minimum, and that's if every single domino falls exactly right for these schools. And I think the it would be probably like a 3 to 5, maybe 6 year plan. I think would be the most reasonable timeline to see how this happens. I'm looking at Jackson State. I'm looking at FAMU. I'm looking at Southern. I'm looking at
Mhm.
Grambling as like the main four. Possibly the Alabama schools I think would be good to move up. especially in that state, because they're competing with a lot of programs. When you're an FCS program, it's hard to compete with Alabama, Auburn, Jacksonville State, Sanford, South Alabama, North Alabama. I mean, there's so many programs that they're competing for recruits with, and allowing them to be the FBS program, have a bigger recruiting budget, more scholarships will really help them be more competitive on the recruiting trail in that state. So I think those programs would be the ones I'm really looking at. Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T could be outside SWAC options to come into a potential HBCU conference at the next level. But when you look at the financial freedom, he has a real argument. And me covering both levels of college football, the number one thing for the FBS level is you get a payout from the college football playoffs. So every conference, even if that conference doesn't go to the playoffs, gets some of the revenue from the college football playoff committee. They also bigger TV contracts. And if you make a bowl game, that's where a lot of teams really make the money. Even the crappy bowl games that nobody's going to watch on a Tuesday night. It's in Detroit. It's the Meineke Car Care Bowl, and it's Bowling Green versus Marshall. No one cares, even me. Really,
never even heard of that one.
Yeah, exactly. And so no one's going to watch that game. But those teams get like $3 million a piece. They get to travel there. All the players get all kind of merch, watches. I mean, it's ridiculous the type of stuff they put on. So that experience and that money really helps the program. And then on top of that, you get conference TV revenue and things like that. So I think it's possible, but I think people have to be more explicit about what timeline they're talking about, because people are talking about it, but not saying, "Oh, I'm talking about in the future." But then when they get pushback, they're like, "Oh, now I mean the future," and it's like you weren't talking about it like that. So 3 to 6 years is my plan. I think there's 6 to 8 programs that are probably in line if the dominoes fall right to move. But I think it's a great plan. I think there is more financial freedom at FBS, and eventually the question becomes, is there even going to be an FCS versus FBS distinction with all this conference realignment? And the one concern I have for any FCS program moving up is, with the Power Five having so much volatility up there, is it safe to jump right now anyway? Because if you jump up to a Mountain West, CUSA, a MAC or anything like that, that conference might not have the stability you think. And that college ball playoff check might disappear if this Power 2, Power 3, Power 4, whatever we get, pulls away from the NCAA. You're not going to have that check anymore. What are the TV deals going to look like? So I feel like right this second, there's too much instability. I wouldn't even recommend normal programs. I'm worried about James Madison. I'm worried about Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State, who are moving in the next few years. But I think if the SWAC schools play it right, or HBCUs, if you include A&T and Tennessee State, if they play it right 3 to 6 years, it really and truly, we could be looking back and say Coach Prime really sparked something special for this conference. And I think you can see multiple HBCUs be at the FBS level.
Yeah,
definitely. Blue, like you said, I'm like, because the Power Five, they come into alignment where it's probably only going to be 2 conferences. Like that's what it's looking. That's what it's looking like. And like everybody said on TV, like it's good. We're going to enjoy it. We're going to love it. But what about the small schools? That's FBS. Like, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to get sent back down to FCS? Like, what's really going on? And for me, like, I feel like North Dakota State, like, they just sitting here pretty, just not moving. They it's like, we were just gonna hold all our marbles and we just gonna stay here until we can't stay here no more, until they boot us out. Yeah, so like for me, like if that's the case, if you're gonna stay here until they boot us out, like I do want to move up, but like let's think about this smart. We have schools we can make our own like power conference. We can make our own HBCU conference. We can make it better. Yeah, if you want to exclude some teams out, you can. But like I said, it'll be better if it's just like one big conference with all the top dogs: North Carolina A&T, South Carolina State, Tennessee State, FAMU, Jackson State, Southern, Grambling, and try to throw one more team in there so you make it even. You can make it East and West and just have the top.
I feel like that's what the SEC is doing, because they just added Oklahoma and Texas. Not that y'all see this conference.
Yeah, they
You
just
look at
adding
the
top
SEC and
dogs.
I'm like,
That's
man, listen,
exactly what they're doing.
but that's the idea essentially of just putting together all of these dope, big, substantially like they're evenly spread out as far as competition. We're thinking of, geographic locations, right? Since you're adding in another Texas school in there with Texas A&M because they was a lonesome star. It's like all of those things kind of tying together when we're thinking of logistics and business wise. So I agree with you, Ron. It's just like putting together like a bigger conference necessarily, but not ostracizing those who we feel like don't belong, but like being more business oriented and managing. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to make money, but also keep money. Like we can't just make it and just continue spending it just because, okay, we have all this money and we don't know what to do with it. We have to be able to keep it and retain it to be able to continue using it. I think that is what the SEC does very well. Like they're able to keep it and use it and dish it out and set aside for their athletes, whatever the situation is. Like they are a huge and profitable and actually like if I were to use a platform to be able to be like a top tier conference, I would use the SEC essentially because everybody's like coming in there. So
And,
I get it.
and the 2 points I wanted to make. One is you can't move up without a plan, and also moving up isn't best for everybody. I think when you look at across the group of five level, there's this misconception that everyone's making money. Everyone's
Mhm.
operating with a bunch of money. There's a lot of teams that are operating in a deficit.
Mm.
A lot of teams. Look at UCLA. UCLA was losing money every single year
Everywhere.
at a significant rate at the Power Five level. All those TV contracts, everyone's acting like are handouts and could save a program. UCLA was getting a bag
Yeah.
and they were still losing money. And for
Mhm.
me, not just even HBCUs, FCS programs moving up, they cannot financially withstand the losses that a UCLA can, that a
Mm.
North Texas can, that some of these, programs in the FBS that are losing a lot of money can operate at, and that especially when you look at what happened when FAMU tried to make the jump. You cannot operate at a deficit because the endowments aren't there, that you don't have that large sum of cash to kind of fall back on and make it up in other ways. And so I think you have to be really careful and strategic about what conference are we going to. Are we going to have our rivals? Are we going to play money games? Like there's so many factors you have to put in, and then on top of that too, I think you see the different strategies. Like Ron was just saying, North Dakota State's like, man, we can probably go, but why would we take the risk? We're not losing
Mhm.
money. We're making money. We're winning all these national championships. Why are we going to leave? And then you see some other programs like UMass or someone, they rushed the move and now they're kind of stuck in limbo and they're really drowning and they're going to have to come back down. Eventually, you look at Idaho, Montana, those programs made the move to FBS, drowned, came back to FCS, and they still haven't recovered all the way. I mean, Montana has because we know what they are, but Idaho has not been the same since they came back down. And there's a few other programs, and then I'm just interested to see what the plan is going to be for the SWAC. Are you going super conference? Are you going? Are you going to try to jump into? Are you going to try to take like a pot of teams and put them in a conference, put them in the same division, and that kind of be like the HBCU sector of the Sun Belt of the CUSA
Mhm.
or whatever? I think there's a lot of different ways. The one thing I will say, going independent is not going to work. You
Mhm.
have
Yeah,
to join a
yeah,
Oh
conference. If
yeah.
you go
Yeah.
independent, I give you no chance to succeed, and that
Yeah.
goes for any FCS program. We see what happens. The only successful independent, BYU and Notre Dame, and the
Mhm.
service academies. But we know
Mhm.
what is behind those schools, and so
Yeah.
mhm,
I think you have to join a conference, and you have to bring other HBCUs with you because that's going to be your best shot of making it at that level. And I'm interested in
Mhm.
North Carolina A&T too. They have their own plan. That the SWAC is talking about moving as an organized unit. The MEAC, North Carolina A&T said, "Listen, we're going this way. We chose our own path, and we're going to try to make it first." And so I'm very interested to see over these next few seasons, is A&T strategy going to work better, or is the SWAC's organized approach going to pay off in the long run compared to A&T saying we're just going to go off solo and kind of hope for the best?
That's true. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Love that, love that, love that.
Well, Blue, talk us to, you have a lot to say, but I do want to know a little bit more about your experiences with being in the media day and all the work that you've done so far. I know you're constantly moving, so just tell us a little bit about the things that you've seen, in the last couple days with media day.
It was amazing. There was the media presence was different. I was talking to Stephen Gaither and BJ Jones at the event, Dr. Cavill, and they used to tell me, so there was a small media room, and then there was a huge like forum hall where they had the main stage, all the teams lined up, and they had like Radio Row in this small room. And BJ was telling me that used to just be the room. They'd have the
Mm,
main stage in the front, and the
Wow.
media could just all fit in the back. And so it's expanded so much. And they gave us like little gift bags, like a water bottle, things like that. And BJ was telling me they used to give out huge like gifts to all the media because there wasn't that many. So the budget went a lot further. And he was like, now we get these like little bags because there's a million of us here
Oh
covering
God,
it.
that's
But
funny.
it was great people, man. Everyone was real receptive. The commissioner went around, did a bunch of interviews. Andrew Roberts, the media contact, went around. All the teams were great. It was interesting to see the dynamic. Of course, the storyline is Travis Hunter's foot.
mhm.
A lot of people were, some people were upset that that wasn't asked. I feel like that was kind of like a don't ask, and we're just going to keep it moving. But what they told everyone, it was a minor injury. He's good to go in Miami. It's just
Okay.
it was a precaution. He was on a scooter, had a boot, nothing to be worried about. But for people I talked to, the two coaches that made the biggest impression on me was Coach Dancy at Mississippi Valley State and Dooley at Southern. Those two guys, just sitting there and talking to them, it was just infectious, the confidence that they spoke about their teams. Of course, Valley was selected by the SIDs or whoever votes for the official SWAC predictions. They voted Valley last in the division, and Dancy didn't hesitate to end the interview by saying, "I guarantee we're not finishing last." It,
Mhm.
and he talked about how he felt like he was the guy for the Valley job because a lot of the other coaches around the country would be scared to take that risk, and that he was built to bring this program, to prominence and success. And I just talking to him, I don't think I saw another person as motivated and focused as he was, and he was angry. You could tell he was angry that
Yeah.
his team was being overlooked, and he talked about all the talent they have at different levels at the running back spot with Caleb Johnson. The offensive line, Rodney Bucket, is a monster up there. The defensive line, he said he has some new names to replace, of course, Gardner and Jeremiah Kane on that defensive line. And he just spoke with such confidence. The same with Dooley. He was like, listen, my system, we're going to play basketball on grass and we're going to go out there and put up a lot of points. And he was like, I feel like he feels like every quarterback on campus could start for him tomorrow, and that they
Mhm.
could go out and go win him a SWAC championship. And he didn't know when I was interviewing him that they were picked to win the division, and he didn't shy away from it. That he said that's the expectations for that program. He talked about even Jason Dumas, and this really shocked me. I know a lot of people when Dumas entered the transfer portal thought it was just a given.
Yeah.
He was going to Southern, and Dooley was saying that he doesn't operate like that. That he gave his speech to his team when he took the Southern job, and he never contacted another player until
Wow.
Dumas was in the transfer portal. And then he reached out and he was like, man, he was like, that program did too much for me. And I wouldn't go behind their back and try to undermine what that program is. And he was like, I don't have any,
Love
ill
that.
will toward that program. And so just to hear him kind of break down and be so open about that process, man, those two coaches made the biggest impact on me just in terms of talking to them face to face and hearing their vision for their program.
That's huge. Wow. And that's the
Yeah.
respectability piece is so like you said, honest and transparent because we've seen and heard, so many different cases of coaches, being sneaky and, trying to pull guys from different teams and stuff like that. It's like, at the end of the day, we should all be trying to work together. But, that's me being the peacemaker of everything. Everybody love
Yeah.
each other. But it's a dog eat dog world in
Not
this
in
bitch.
football.
I
Not in
like that
football.
smoke.
Right. You just,
I
you
like
feel
that
good. But that is
smoke.
very admirable to be able to not only experience that, but that being, spread in a light that others, should be able to listen to and also kind of learn from and be able to, implement in their own programs. Now, Ron, you got to see or hear a couple of the interviews. What did you take away from some of the things that you saw in Media Day?
That a lot of just to piggyback off of what Blue said, a lot of the teams are really confident this year. Like
Yeah.
I haven't seen so much confidence in different teams. Like they're oozing with Like I don't know what it is. It's just oozing out of them. So like just seeing the young athletes on stage and just seeing them with their coach, like everybody this year is expected to show out. Like
Mhm.
I'm not expecting a bad game this year out of no team unless they just come out and they just forgot to wake up or rolled on the wrong side of the bed. That's the only thing I can say if I see them. But
Mhm.
from the SWAT media day, just watching Coach Prime and Shador and Travis Hunter, they was just oozing swag. Like just
Mhm.
everything about him is just like, okay, I can see where y'all two have a wide receiver and quarterback connection already, and that's
Mhm.
scary.
Mhm.
And seeing Xavier Smith and Isaiah Land out up there, like they want redemption.
Mhm.
They're coming. They're every game. It seemed like they just said they want it. And Grambling was up there, just seeing what them boys they haven't said nothing about last season.
Right.
They're in the now with Hugh
Yeah.
Jackson and everything. And with
Right.
Eric Dooley, he like from what from previous players said and what players saying now is like he's a different person
Yeah.
because he's home. He's at Southern,
Yeah.
so this season is really gonna be crazy. This season is really gonna be fun. It's gonna be some upsets this season. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I ain't gonna say who, but it's gonna be some upsets this season, man. It's gonna be a good season. A lot of heads gonna be scratching and this first SWAT game that we're gonna see against FAMU and Jackson State is that's gonna be the
You're
best
really
one, and that's
starting
gonna
this
be
season off with a bang. Really.
You
It's
yeah, they
started off
really
on
are.
fire.
with
On
Sam and
fire.
Jackson State. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So
One of the surprises I would feel like too is in my interview with Shador, he said that Quay Davis is going to play running back this year.
Wow.
Wow.
The 4-star wide receiver transfer. I
Yeah.
mean, he
Yeah.
said he's playing both positions. So he said he's probably going to be used like a Debo Samuel in that system, which means that they'll have him, Savion Wilkerson, who was an all conference running back, and they still return. They still let Tyson Alexander comes back from injury, and they return Santi Marshall too, plus
Mm.
JD Martin's back. So I mean, I'm interested because I think that Quay Davis move could be big because they really struggled running the ball last year.
Yeah.
they
As
did.
much as it was the offensive line, and I'm a former O lineman, I understand how bad that offensive line played at times. The running backs just didn't seem to have that explosiveness, and now you get Quay Davis and Savion Wilkerson in there. That it could be disgusting to see what they can put on the field.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. That will be huge additions for them. Not only them, I think this year, for some reason, it seems like a lot of schools have been getting all these, from the transfer portal, all these transfers coming in. So that may be the confidence that you're seeing kind of spill out at the media day. Like, hey, we got
Mhm.
this guy. They haven't seen him play. It hasn't hit the sweat conference. We got this guy on defense, this guy on offense. So I think a lot of these schools are just like feeling overwhelmed. Like, oh, we got it going on. And once that clock strikes for the game, you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a great season. A lot of upsets this year.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of upsets, as we talk about, what games to watch, what games to attend, kind of like going back to that moving up the ladder of like how can we, when we're specifically talking about like our HBCUs and what do they need to kind of push themselves forward, help retain a lot of things. And it kind of come down to a lot of different aspects, right? But specifically like attendance, and we're talking about ticket sales. One thing for certain is I know Ron, you had spilled off the statistic of like how many teams or what's the numbers that you'll be able to, and Blue, you can chime in on that, but I think it was like 15K or something like that.
13.
What's those numbers? Let's get
Yeah.
let's educate what we need
Shoot.
so that people can spread the word. It's all about educating and spread the word, what it is that we need.
Definitely. I'm gonna let Blue expound on it, but you gotta have basically a certain amount of numbers to like basically move up to the FBS. So, once you maintain those numbers and have those numbers, then like that's one step that you got. But there's plenty more steps. But this is like one of the biggest steps that every FCS team needs to abide by. Go ahead, Blue. I'm gonna let you talk on it.
Yeah, the attendance one I think is the biggest misconception, and so I will kind of expound on that. It's not. It used to be you have to have like an average of 15,000 people attend the
Mm-hmm.
games, but what happened is the FBS really needed teams the FBS needed teams. There was a struggle to get some teams in there, and they had some teams leave, and so it was a big struggle. So they kind of made it a soft requirement where now it's really and truly they kind of more pay attention to how many tickets do you sell and how big is your stadium. So your stadium has to be a certain size. I'm not sure. I don't think they set a hard deadline, but you at least have to be able to sell 15,000 tickets on average over like a 2-3 year span. And so it allows more teams to potentially who are going to make the move, make a way on how to sell more tickets. That way they meet that requirement. And then the other harder requirements or more important ones can be met. Because what was happening is you had a team who would sell 15,000 tickets, but would have like 5,000-6,000 go to the games. And just due to, we all know what it is. We talked before the show about how there's teams that claim they have a bunch of sellouts, but haven't sold out a game in a very long time. So that's really what the requirement is. So when you're looking at some of the HBCU programs that would probably fit that, Jackson State, Southern, FAMU, I feel like A&T could make that jump only a few more thousand on that one. I think Alabama State, Alabama A&M potentially. And I think the problem with Grambling, I know that Grambling attendance is very low because they weren't very good last year. The neutral site games sometimes do hurt those averages because that Grambling average doesn't include the Bayou Classic, which is like 60,000 people going to that game. So now it hurts because that Jackson State Bethune game, like let's say if it was in Jackson and they moved it, that wouldn't count to Jackson State's average. So that's going to hurt Bethune's average because that game's not going to be in their home stadium anymore. So it also hurts FAMU and Bethune because that Florida Classic is not in either home stadium. It's a neutral site game. FAMU Jackson State, that hurts both teams because it's in Miami, not at the home stadium. So those neutral site games actually are hurting HBCUs when it comes to those attendance numbers. And I think when you include those games, like if whoever's the home team, quote unquote, got to average that in, I feel like the averages would be a lot higher for a lot of these HBCU programs.
That's actually a very good point that you brought up because I'm thinking of okay, so I went to undergrad at LSU, go Tigers, and there was no like neutral location game. All of the big games are either played at home or like the following year. Like first thing I'm coming around at LSU, Alabama, right? They either played at LSU and they had the most numbers, or they played at Alabama for the most numbers. So it's very interesting that you say that because I didn't even put that together of like the biggest games that they're playing with the most attendance are not even at their home advantage field or in the opposite and kind of like vice versa. So I wonder if, to maybe in the future, that's something that they should think about doing is like having a game. But the only problem is they traditionally already have a foundation with these games. Florida Classic is always going to be, where is that, in Orlando? You got the first game that we just talked about, FAMU versus Jackson State, is in Miami. So it's like they've already have the foundation created. So that's what's going to make it really challenging for them to move that forward. It's like we have all these great ideas, guys, and then it's like, but we've been doing it. Why would we change it? And it's like, because it's broken.
I'm so biased though. I hate neutral site games. I mean, even coming from, because I graduated from Auburn, I hated neutral site games at the FBS level. I'm a guy. So, it's really weird because, opening week games are neutral site games, but at the FBS level, you look at the big rivalries, there's not a lot of neutral site games that are being played. But I mean, you got the Army-Navy game, but I feel like that's a weird, like that's in its own, weird spot. But
own category.
But when you look at a lot of the big rivalry games, like could you imagine? I would for me looking at it, it would take away from Ohio State, Michigan to play that game in Indianapolis.
Right.
Like it wouldn't be the same as being there and having that environment. And same when Alabama Auburn was playing in Birmingham, it's not the same as playing it in Jordan-Hare or in Bryant-Denny. So for me, I hate neutral site games. Like give me FAMU, Jackson State in Bragg.
Right.
What would that environment be like, and what would the ticket sales and the revenue be for the city of Tallahassee and the surrounding businesses around FAMU? And for me, regardless if you went to an HBCU or not, all of us have been to colleges, been to college games. There's nothing like going back to your old campus and going to your old favorite spot to eat, going to see your old dorms, friends, like the same tailgate spots. You always want to sit in the same part of the stadium. Like, being at your home campus is so different, and you don't have the same connection to a neutral site game, in my opinion. And it takes away from opposing fans and people who are just coming to see the magnitude of the game. So someone who might not be a FAMU grad or Bethune grad or a fan and just come see that game because of the magnitude of it, they don't get the true FAMU or Bethune experience because it's in Orlando. And like, you get some of it. And I know some FAMU fans, Mr. Campbell, some people listening to my show probably were going to kill me for saying it. Like, you're not going to get the same FAMU experience in Orlando as you do in Tallahassee.
But
like,
you're really not.
You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So
that's not their home. Yeah.
It takes away from it. Like, it would mean so much more to have those big games in a respective place. And I think with the increased attention on HBCUs, all the stadiums are big enough to host these games. Like Grambling Southern, it's a little weird because neither of them have a huge stadium, and you'd be decreasing the attendance by like 40,000. But Bragg and Jackson State are big enough now where I think they could do that game at a home and home. And I think when I watched the Miami game last year, the crowd wasn't into it. I know it was raining and it COVID and things like that, but the atmosphere wasn't there for that game. The game was amazing. Great athletes, great coaches, and the fans and all that during halftime. But the fan atmosphere wasn't the same. Can you imagine that game in Jackson and they're doing their chant, all those shakers waving and the swag surfing at FAMU? Like, there's so much stuff and things that happen at the home games that I just feel like neutral site games take away from it. But that's my whole bias on neutral site games. I am anti neutral site games.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off of that, see, a lot of these programs are spending a lot of money for the neutral site games. They have to not only, rent that stadium out, pay to rent the stadium out. They have to travel over 100 people, feed them, house them. It's an extra away game when you can actually just have it as a home game and make just as much money, if not more money, because you're not having to spend all that money for traveling, housing, and feeding these kids.
I guess this is what the prime time was talking about. Either we're gonna stay in tradition, or we're gonna try to get a financial gain. And like, Blue, you changed my mind because I do like those rallies, but I'm a neutral site person. Like, I like to go to neutral sites and like, okay, I know one of my friends ain't gonna come all the way up to Tallahassee, but I know I'm gonna meet him in Orlando. So like, you changed my aspect as far as like, Alabama's and Auburn's and with the LSU's and Alabama and the Georgia and Florida, like those games are not at neutral sites, and it's literally like home field advantage. And if you want to bring your crowd, bring them. And we just gonna have a shout match the whole time. So just being in what you said, Blue, being in those environments at the school, knowing that everybody's gonna be there, all the student section is gonna be there. Yeah, like you said, Jackson our group that we have right now, family football players, they never been to Jackson. They don't even know what that environment looks like. So just going into that environment, will you show up? Will you still be asleep in your dorm room? Like just knowing that, like going to Bethune, like will the beach catch us up?
Will you be riding in the tide?
Yeah, will we be drinking Mai Tais and watching Daytona 500? Are we gonna show up? Like what's really going on? So just off of you saying that, Blue, like I really like I have respect for that, because like we need to get out the tradition and actually make more money for these games. Get the fans engaged, because fans haven't saw what Tallahassee looked like playing Bethune at Bethune or at Tallahassee. The same. But the same way with Grambling and Southern, we don't know what that atmosphere feel like or look like
Mhm.
we can literally have these games on national TV without going to these neutral sites. So, Blue,
Yeah.
I'm glad you made a
Yeah,
good point off that.
Well, and
yeah,
the question for a lot of people too. I've talked to a lot of HBCU grads. I'm newer to the space, and every time they tell me a story about their favorite HBCU game, it's one either a big home game that they won where the crowd was electric and they got to go party and they were going crazy, or the flip side, they go to their rivals' home stadium and they take it over. Like
They take it over.
at like some of the Southern and Jackson State fans have told me some of their favorite games were the boombox games where they took over the stadium and Jackson State was chanting at Southern to like go home and they were stealing their chant. Like all those stories, everyone's so passionate about, but having neutral site games, it's not the same because you're not taking over their state. Like it's not the same. And so like that's another reason too is all those great stories that people are telling are home and home games. And so I think if you move the Florida Classic to Bragg or in Bethune and whatever other classic game, how many great stories are going to come out of that of when FAMU just smacked Bethune Cookman and Bragg and the crowd was going crazy and like all these great stories.
Mhm.
And I think it puts FAMU and Bethune in a better light to it. It promotes
Yes.
the campus and what that community actually brings to the football environment better. If that big game where it's going to sell out, if Bethune could be 0-11 and FAM could be 1-10, and that game's selling out because it's
yeah.
the Florida Classic.
Yeah.
So I don't see why that
Exactly.
game's not held at home.
To
Exactly.
me, that game being home seems more culturally sound than having it
Mhm.
at a neutral site because that's when
Mhm.
the true memories are made.
Mhm.
Ron spoke
Yeah.
about going to these neutral sites. I too I like going to neutral sites, but it's because I'm looking at it from a fan aspect. If we're going
Mhm.
to Miami, I can party in Miami and go to the
Mhm.
game. I'm not
Mhm.
able to do that at Bragg Stadium, but when you
Mhm.
have a game at Bragg Stadium, you have a game at Jackson State, memories are made.
Mhm.
You remember each play that you make as an athlete. Like, hey, I remember this
Mhm.
game, the crowd was going crazy, the band was going
Mhm.
crazy, mama was in the stands, the teacher was at the you remember all of that because that's the atmosphere you're in.
Yeah,
So yeah,
definitely.
I definitely agree with that standpoint, but I think you have to just look at it from a different perspective in order to understand that.
Yeah, they definitely have to be open to the change because, like I said, it's already traditionally, foundational. So it's like for them to have that one time to be like, all right, this year, 2024, Florida Class is going to be played at FAMU. I'm pretty sure it's going to be an uproar. However,
Yeah.
I also believe and this is, I mean, we putting our faith in our fans, our spectators, right? Because it's really them who are creating these numbers. The game is going to be played regardless, right?
Right.
It's really the spectators or the businesses, small businesses, whatever you think is going to be creating those connections in those different places. But I think that if these fans are truly fans of FAMU or truly fans of Bethune, they're going to go to the game regardless. They're going to go because there are fans of not the location. They are fans of the game and what the game can do. And I think they just need that one time, but it's going to take a leap of faith. Whoever is in control of who decides
Yeah.
or where it's going to be and whatever, they just need to make sure that they may get like some death threats.
It's gonna be bad. Listen, I'll
Yeah.
preface. This is just my
Emails
opinion.
and
I'm not
CCing their
suggesting anything.
grandmothers.
Y'all don't at me on Twitter. Y'all don't DM me. Like, listen,
Right.
it's my opinion. I'm blocking
Well,
all of y'all. Don't
Uh,
Blue
DM me for
said
nothing.
that this.
hey, hey,
I
hey,
mean,
Blue,
like, it was
I
really
got your
Blue.
back, Blue.
Blue
I
told
got
us
your
that
back.
we should do
I
this.
got your back,
This
Blue.
guy
Let's
right
get
here.
it.
It was
It's
him.
Hey,
It was him.
at me at Blue. But no, I genuinely think that would be a really cool idea. Just for them to see it and for whatever it's just a year. It's one game out of the year. If it doesn't work, okay, bring it back to Orlando, whatever, or bring it back to Miami, whatever. Or between Jackson State and what's the Southern Heritage Classic, Jackson State and Tennessee State, they're always
Yeah.
played in
Yeah.
Memphis, right? Take it back, sure, but I think like you were saying so elegantly, Blue, it creates a much better long lasting memory, but then you're also helping the school itself. You're helping the numbers that we're wanting. We're helping the money that we're trying to make instead of us putting, like you were saying, Jerry, like you're spending all the money that you're making, so how are we able to retain things? So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe we should just
Yeah.
get a petition going and
I don't
get
know.
a
I'm out on that one.
moment.
Listen,
It's gonna be
I'm out
out
on
your
that
name,
one.
Blue. I promise.
Sure,
I have to use
but
my
yeah,
government name.
Yes, correct.
I could attest with Blue with just the first game of the season from last year.
Yeah.
Like when I showed up, I was like, I paid for parking. I was like, nobody's tailgating, and I kept
Mm,
looking around. I was like, this doesn't feel like it
like
feels
home.
right,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel right. And a Blue could test me. It's like when you was at the stadium, like it. You could. The game was in the atmosphere, but the fans was there but not there at the same
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just awkward. It didn't feel like a homecoming. It didn't feel like a HBCU game. It just felt like a regular football game. So
Mm-hmm.
I can attest with you to that, Blue. We do need to start playing these games at
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of that, when people say, oh, it's tradition, it's what we've been doing for the longest. What else have we been doing for the longest? We've also been struggling financially for the longest. So in order for us to get out of that struggle financially, we have to make some changes to what we've been doing to get out of that struggle.
Correct.
Simple as that.
Definitely,
Preach, Patrol.
definitely.
Listen. Okay, so we're gonna talk quick about schedules, specifically within the swag. One thing about it, everybody can kind of chime in on what they feel like is necessary, but do we feel like our teams are having a balanced schedule? Do we feel like some teams need to like rethink how they are managing their schedules this year as opposed to future years? Where are our minds at? I'll kind of drop it off to you guys, whoever wants to chime in first of schedules. Where are we at? Football.
Well, I'm gonna go because I'm gonna just a shout out to Swat Buzz. I got this from Swat Buzz. I thought this was like a great idea. From what the scheduling look like, you still keep all your rival games, and you just get to swap, your 4 or 5 games each year for even
Mm-hmm.
the odd years or however you want to mix it up. I think this is a good way. This is a good way for people to, actually go undefeated, or if you play that person once and you only lose that one time, you still get to play them again for the SWAC championship instead of having an East or West. So I think this is the best thing I ever saw for the SWAC because it helps teams out to if they lose that one game, they can still go to the SWAC championship and still go to the Celebration Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cool with the pod system. I'm a fan of it. I think divisions are outdated. And the one thing though is the one complaint is going to be so the SWAC, of course, is one of the only FCS conferences with divisions, as we know. But the problem with like a big conference is you look at someone like the Big Sky. Last year, Sacramento State won the Big Sky. They didn't play the second, third, fifth, or sixth place team in the conference just because it just happened to be that those teams were good that it just played out that way. So the problem with this is you're still going to have some people who aren't happy, but I think this is a more fair way where it doesn't matter what division game you lose or who's in the division, who isn't. The complaint is going to be is one year Jackson State wins, they don't play the three of the top 5 teams, and people are going to be like, well, they got an easy schedule. And it's like it's random like that. One day
Yeah.
your team will have an easy schedule too. But I
Yeah.
love the pod system, and I think this opens up out of conference games too, because
Mm-hmm.
I do not like teams, and I'm not calling them out, but Jackson State and Grambling this year is an out of conference game.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that scheduled? Why in the
Yeah.
world is that a game that you like? Why don't you go play somebody outside the conference? Like Grambling will be back on your schedule eventually. It's okay. I understand they did it for the, Hugh Jackson, Coach
Yeah.
Prime matchup and everything. But for me, I do not like that. This will open up schedules more. SWAC out of conference games could become a bigger thing, and I'm always a fan of that. I've been on that boat, but I love this. I love this. Shout out to SWAC Buzz for putting this together, putting into a graphic because the ACC and some of the other top conferences are going to this model, and we're going to see just how it works. But I think it could help the SWAC, especially because there's so many rivalry games you have to keep alive, and this does a nice job balancing that while also allowing you to play everyone in your conference every few years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I have personal experience. We played at Winston-Salem State 2015. We lost our first 5 games, 5 straight. And they were 3 of them were out of conference, and then we lost 2 in conference, and then no 4 out of conference. We lost 1 in conference, and then we won the rest of our games and ended up going to the conference championship game just because we won out the rest of those games and on our certain division, and it was like y'all didn't lose or didn't beat the number 1 seed, number 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, whoever that is, but it's because it was a little bit easier. Our schedule got easier in conference. That's the reason why we end up, going to the conference championship game and end up winning that conference championship game. On my ring, it says 6-5. So, and I'm okay with that. I ain't got no problem with that 6-5 ring.
He said a win is win.
Right.
Still won.
Win is a conference
What made sense is we won.
Right.
But just for me, like the competition that's coming in now to the SWAC and the level of play that's going to happen in the next couple of years, the SWAC is going to be stronger through all the teams. Like even Valley, I feel like Valley, UAPB, they're going to come up slowly but surely. So just knowing that you have I wish I could have played Prairie View, because FAMU really doesn't play Prairie View or Texas Southern like that. Wolf Day just had an amazing year, and that was the highlight. That could be the highlight game of the year. Then you could see that game again in the SWAC championship. Why not? Like, just like last year, everybody would have loved to see FAMU and Jackson State go at it one more time.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not see that again? So, like you said, Blue. This pod system is I love it because you never know what you're going to get out of it. You never know what team is going to be good. You never know what team is going to have a hard schedule or easy schedule. Like, you never know what's up or what's going to happen at the end of the year. Just by setting this how can I say it? Setting this schedule up.
I think what is really good about this system is not only like the randomness, but I feel like it's also balanced in the sense of the teams that they're going to be, like all of the permanent opponents, like how balanced all those 3 for each of those teams are. But even like just the even and odd teams. What's going to be interesting though is if like we see these, let's take for instance Southern, right? They play Mississippi Valley every couple of years, right? More than likely, it's either going to be a very close game, or traditionally, I feel like Southern has more of a lead up on Mississippi Valley, right? If we see that, growing and seeing like Mississippi Valley starting to winning these games, kind of like what Ron, you were saying, we're going to want to see that again, right? Instead of it being like every other year. So I think it's going to be very interesting as we see these teams kind of getting better as years and years going, whether you're just getting better because they have more exposure or getting better because they have more resources, whatever the situation is. It's going to be like, okay, now we want to see them, go again and again and again instead of just every other year. But I still like the way that this is set up as well. I think that it's balanced. I think that it gives you a great way to kind of look at how all of these teams have the opportunity of meeting everybody within their conference, because I think that's very important. Not even anybody out. Everybody has to see each other at some point in time, whether it's that year or the opposite year. So yeah, I think, we have a good foundation. It's just, continuing that as it moves forward and as we get better. But we want to get better as a conference. It's like sometimes I feel like sometimes it's like you have the certain teams. Like we always talk about like the FAMU, the Jackson State, right? Like those are the better of the teams, or even throwing in Grand Miller or something in there. But like we also want to see all the other teams elevate as well. So that way it'll be really enticing for every single year. Not just like, okay, I'm only looking for the even years. Like we don't right.
Oh, that's funny.
It's like, shit, we're at 23. All right.
We don't play them this year.
24.
Yeah.
So I think looking at it from a spectator's point of view, or just like you're just an overall fan. That's my only reservation. Just make sure all the years are even.
I mean, even as an athlete though, like if you're a coach or an athlete, if you lose that one game, you can't say, "Oh, we'll get them next year." You'll have to say, "We'll get them in 2 years, guys. We'll get them in 2 years. We'll be all right." And half of those guys aren't going to be on that team anymore. Those guys are gone.
That's
Oh,
funny.
that's hilarious. That is
Oh
hilarious.
man.
Hey, but at the end of the day, that means you have to bring your A game
Yeah,
every game. You have
every
to,
year.
because like
Yeah,
you can't fall asleep, because like you said,
yeah.
Jay, it's gonna be 2 years. So hey, we gonna be pouting and moaning for
2026.
2 years, but hey, when that second year come up, you go get your ass
Yeah.
beat. Shoot, man, that's hilarious, man. Thank you, Blue, for coming on. I know you've been busy. Can you tell the people what you got going on for these next couple of days, man?
Yeah, man, you can find us on social media at the underscore Blue Bloods, YouTube, the Blue Bloods, man. We got coach interviews, player interviews, man. We were down at Southland Media Day yesterday. Today it's SWAC Media Day. Tomorrow at ASUN. Next week will be at Big South, CAA, SoCon, and the MEAC Media Day, man. So we making the whole round. So we got plenty of coaches interviews up already for SWAC Media Day, man. I got so much, like, we got so much content, man. I had to drop 8 hours yesterday, so I didn't even get to upload. I didn't even finish my Southland Media Day uploads, and then I got to upload all the SWAC stuff, man. But we got interviews, Shador Sanders, Travis Hunter, most of the head coaches in the SWAC, man. So tune into all that on. You can catch it on YouTube. All the links will be on social media, man. But I appreciate y'all having me, man. I love making time for this show, man. And anytime y'all want me to hop on the show, man, just hit me up. You know I got you guys.
Thank you for
Definitely,
coming, man.
definitely, man. Yeah, thank you for coming, Blue, man. We definitely gonna have you back on, and be safe on them roads and planes and everything, man. And make sure y'all watch Blue video. Y'all better watch Blue and get
Watch
a like.
Blue, for sure.
Like, subscribe, and share. Goddamn.
Hey, I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all have a great one.
All right,
All right.
peace out. Man, that was my boy Blue, the Kid Wonder. Shoot, you already know. But yeah, this was a good week of the Free Snap Read. Sorry for those two weeks of layoff. We everybody was busy. Everybody's busy.
That
People
means
going on
we're all
vacation.
doing what we need to do to
Yes,
elevate ourselves, okay?
yes, and making that
Elevate.
money. That's what we've been
Money
doing, really.
Dan.
I've been spending money,
Yeah.
but I will eventually get some. Hey, listen, I was moving, okay? I had a
Mhm.
lot to do, but we're settled now. Almost.
Okay,
We're
cool,
almost there.
cool. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna definitely get back out with y'all, people in YouTube land. I love y'all. Thank y'all for supporting me. Thank y'all for supporting them. Thank y'all for subscribing and liking this page. And we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.
Make sure you follow the Pre-Snap Read on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Please like, share, and subscribe to make this page grow. I see y'all. I'm out.